Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was in Game of Thrones. Many know Robert's first, and only, legitimate child was stillborn. But what if that was wrong? What if the gods, namely the Shinigami, intervened at the last moment? What if the deity pulled a hero from his collection and placed it in the child? To become a hero of the Seven Kingdoms? Empowered to combat treachery? To bring peace to the world? His name? Naruto of House Baratheon. Welcome aboard. Chapter 1. I Am Fury. Many know of the three children of King Robert Baratheon. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen Baratheon. All three royal children of the king and his beautiful queen Cersei of House Lannister. But what many do not know, is there was one child prior to those three being born, and unlike the three mentioned children, this one child was actually Robert's by blood legitimately. The official story behind the child to those who knew of him, was he had been stillborn, and did not survive long enough to breathe air into his lungs. It was a devastating blow to the king and queen when it happened, and many mourned the loss of Robert's firstborn son. Again, it was the official story. The unofficial story? The boy lived to scream like any baby screamed when brought into the world on a night where a storm howled outside of the Red Keep. The most violent storm ever recorded in the history of Westeros, to be exact. And like any baby once born in the Seven Kingdoms, his father was in the room, inspected him to see his features in the child to confirm it was indeed his own. When King Robert first laid eyes on the child, the king saw the signs of his own features in the form of darker shade of blonde hair, and the intense blue eyes only a true Baratheon of his line could possess. While a bit disappointed his son would not have black hair like himself, Robert had been pleased to know at least the boy would have his eyes and not those green eyes House Lannister was known to possess on their side. Listen to the boy scream out. Ours is fury. Do you hear him, Cersei? There is fury in his scream. Like a warrior taking a sword or hammer to his enemy. My son will be strong. Like his father. A fury like no others. A Maelstrom. Yes, that's what I'll name you. In old Valyrian tongue, my grandmother said there was a name for such a person. Naruto. Yes. That is what I will name you, boy. Naruto of House Baratheon. My son. Exclaimed Robert happily while laughing. But then something happened. Something that neither Robert, Cersei, the hand of the King Jon Arryn, the handmaidens assisting the queen, or the Grand Maester there to see this event could explain it. The child was screaming even louder, thrashing about to the point where Robert almost dropped him, and had to put the boy on the bed. To the shock of those in the room, the eyes of the child, now named Naruto of House Baratheon, had changed drastically. One eye shifted from blue to red with a strange tomo design, and the other shifted to that of purple with a ripple design. What? What has happened? Asked Cersei in a weak voice, since she had spent what felt like the longest hours of the night screaming out in pain, giving birth to this one child. I don't know. Grand Maester Pycelle. Look at his eyes. Why does one look demon red and the other like the eye of a fucking Targaryen? Commanded Robert angrily while the maester in question gave the boy a once-over. It is hard to say, your grace. It is possible that some of the Targaryen features from your grandmother's side of the family has manifested itself in the one eye, and the other is different due to your Baratheon blood clashing with your grandmother's Targaryen ancestry, said Pycelle while carefully examining the boy's eyes. Fucking Targaryens. Even now, that fucking dragon mocks me after they have been all killed off. Exclaimed Robert angrily before glaring at the boy sporting an eye similar to the house he hated beyond measure. What do you intend to do, your grace? Asked Pycelle while Robert thought long and hard about this in his mind. Robert, don't kill him. He's still my baby. And yours. Pleaded Cersei in her weakened state while Robert himself looked from her to the baby before his rage dimmed, just a bit. Raise him in secret for now. Until I say otherwise, the child is stillborn, replied Robert before he left the room in a huff and let out a scream of rage at this turn of events. His son had Targaryen features. Targaryen. From Robert's grandmother's side of the family of all things. It was infuriating. It was bad enough he was of Targaryen blood thanks to his grandmother, but Robert had hoped the traits would never pass on through his seed. At the very least, his wife's own blood should help keep it from manifesting, but not it seemed the strength of the dragon could not truly be suppressed. "My queen?" asked Pycelle after handing Naruto over to Cersei, while knowing that even though Robert was king of the Seven Kingdoms, the queen's father held the most sway, and by extension the queen herself. As for Jon Arryn, he just stood by to watch events play out, knowing only his own sound advice to Robert following tonight could possibly save this child from an extremely short life. "Do what your king commands of you, Pycelle. Everyone here is sworn to silence. Until a time comes, my son is officially dead to the world," said Cersei while she reflected on the fact her child with Robert was alive and the prophecy foretold by Maggie the Frog made itself known in her mind. Was this child one of 3 she would bring into the world and die before herself? Or was this something else entirely? Did the gods old and new change their plans and the destiny of the 7 kingdoms in the process? If so, then what did it mean for the child now in her arms? Or for those she would have in the future? Cersei did not dare think about what this new development meant for her as a woman or as queen of the 7 kingdoms. King's Landing Blackwater Bay sometime later. Officially, Robert had declared his son a stillborn, as the rage over his son sporting the eye color of House Targaryen on one side, and a demonic red one in the other. His child was turned into something horrible. Horrible. The eyes did not change back despite the fact he tasked Grand Maester Pycelle with finding a way to bring back Naruto's Baratheon blue eyes. With each passing day, week, and month the king of the 7 kingdoms became angrier over the fact his son was not becoming more Baratheon in appearance. Everyone who knew Robert also knew the man hated Targaryens with a passion not unlike how the Targaryens loved using fire on their enemies in a similar passionate way. After what they did to his beloved Lyanna Stark in kidnapping her away from him, only for her to die shortly before the war ended, had made Robert almost go mad with rage. He desired the entirety of House Targaryen wiped out and only tolerating the blood in his veins on his grandmother's side to the point of becoming the next legitimate ruler on the Iron Throne. As for Cersei, her own mind had become poisoned with dark thoughts surrounding her son, and the excessive whoring Robert had done since becoming king. As time slowly progressed in raising her son, Cersei started to hate the boy, believing he was the reason, outside of Lyanna Stark's own shadow, that Robert had started being unfaithful to her, and started fucking whores in brothels or wenches in taverns. She didn't even let the child breastfeed from her and had another woman, who was Cersei's personal handmaiden, the only one her husband had fucked yet, do it instead, and left to be elsewhere from her son. When the boy was roughly 4 years old, Robert finally had enough in terms of waiting to see if Naruto would ever become more Baratheon like himself. Cersei had enough in terms of dealing with the boy being a reminder of her marriage slowly showing signs of being loveless. So, they both decided in full agreement, a rarity in itself, to do something about this situation they felt would remedy their problems in one shot. They gave Naruto to a handmaiden, the same one in charge of breastfeeding him when he was a baby, also the only one Robert never fucked during that time, and told her to sail for Essos to deal with the boy in her own way. That was Robert's command as king, as he no longer cared in regards to what happened to the brat, and didn't bother to even see the servant off, but Cersei was a different matter entirely. She had other plans for the boy and didn't want the child to return to Westeros anytime soon, much less physically, or even mentally whole. Sail to Essos and send him to the masters of Astapor. Have them turn him into one of their Unsullied, commanded Cersei coldly to the woman in front of her. "My queen?" questioned the handmaiden while not fully understanding why the woman would give her such a command. "Did I stutter?" "Sail to Astapor and turn him over to the masters handling the training of the Unsullied. They will ensure he is a proper, yet obedient warrior. They will also ensure the boy never truly becomes a man to fuck any whore who catches his fancy and sire any bastards," said Cersei with a cruel smile on her face, knowing Robert got what he wanted out of his son being made a warrior, and so did she by ensuring the boy didn't one day sire children of his own. Simply because the Unsullied had no cock or balls to use due to the masters of Astapor cutting it off. Yes, my queen, whispered the handmaiden, who was a bit shaken by the cruelty of the queen, and the dark look in those eyes aimed at the very child she brought into the world. Good. No doubt the masters in Astapor will pay you a hefty sum for the child. You may keep it all as payment for your loyalty and silence on the matter when this is over, said Cersei while she motioned for the woman to depart on the ship with the boy. The handmaiden in question merely nodded and turned around while taking Naruto into her arms before walking toward the boat. Looking back for 1 second, the woman saw Cersei had already walked away from the port, and had no intention of stopping to even consider looking back herself. A gold dragon for your thoughts, my dear, said the smooth voice of Varys, the master of whispers, from near the ship meant to sail for Essos. Lord Varys! Exclaimed the handmaiden in shock, but bowed slightly all the same. I see you are taking the young prince away. Such a shame the child of royalty is sent away all because his father hates his natural features. Even worse, the boy's own mother hates her child due to her husband's whoring. No doubt she blames more on her own son's unique traits, which the queen believes encourages the king to be repeatedly unfaithful. I am starting to suspect madness is not just a trait shared only among the Targaryens these days, commented Varys while he looked at the sleeping child and wondered just how much milk of the poppy did they put in the boy's food and drink to knock him out. From what his little birds told him, the boy was energetic for his age, and yet was highly perceptive of his surroundings. As if he knew who to trust and not to trust in a just few short moments interacting with people. No doubt Cersei or Robert had a servant Naruto had never seen before drug his food before another, who didn't know about the milk of the poppy, giving it to him, and let nature take its course. By the time the child woke up, Naruto would have no idea where he was, and how he got there with the woman holding onto him during the entire ship ride over to Essos. Poor boy. He would have his little birds keep an eye on the boy's progress in Essos and see if the child could be of use to the overall benefit of the realm should Robert's clear, yet early sign of ineffective ruling fails miserably. Yes. And to turn him into an unsullied. I had heard stories about them and how they are turned into slave soldiers for a slave army. It is wrong, whispered the woman with the feeling of sorrow in her heart while Varys nodded, since he was from Essos and knew the cruelty of the world there was by far worse than Westeros could ever hope to be when compared side by side. And Varys did not wish for any child, much less this one, have something in common with him in regard to lacking the male appendage between the legs. Which is why I propose an alternative to your approach with what the royal family has asked of you, my dear. One where the boy does not become an unsullied, but gains the fighting prowess worthy of a Baratheon, and being called his father's son, offered Varys before he slid gracefully to his left and showed a chest filled to the brim with gold. Lord Varys, this is too much. Protested the woman while Varys smiled a gentle smile at her. Not when it comes to investing in the good of the realm, my dear. Take this chest of gold and spend it wisely on young Naruto. Raise the boy as your own son if you must while in Essos, but do not squander his clearly limitless potential. Something tells me the fate of the 7 kingdoms will rest on that poor boy's shoulders. It will be your duty to ensure those shoulders are strong enough to hold said weight when the time comes, said Varys while the woman simply nodded and went onto the ship with 2 men taking the chest with them. When should I return with him? Asked the woman curiously with Varys smiling. When he shows his strength mentally and physically is superior to all those around him, said Varys with the handmaiden nodding. I will, Lord Varys. I will make this boy a strong Baratheon worthy of his father and be the future king of the 7 kingdoms, whispered the handmaiden while she held the boy close. May I know the name of the woman who will be the boy's future mother? Questioned Varys while the woman smiled. It's Kushina. Kushina of House Uzumaki. My family bloodline can be traced right back to old Valeria itself, said Kushina while Varys was shocked, but pleased by this. Good to know. Teach him everything you know, my dear. Knowledge is power and he will need all the power available to him, said Varys while Kushina nodded and she held the child close. All the while the ship was sailing away from Westeros to Essos and one day, into the very beyond itself. No one would see Prince Naruto for nearly 20 years. Nearly 20 years later, narrow sea. A small raft with a single sail rode the waves of the brutal sea around one figure sitting in the raft, currently acting like nothing was wrong. It didn't matter to this man that there was a storm around him. It didn't matter if there was heavy rain, thunder, lightning, and waves almost as big as the wall in the north within the realm of Westeros. To this one person on this raft, this was irrelevant in his mind, and he did not fear the storm raging around like a wild beast. For in truth, this man was the storm. It was a reflection of his rage. His wrath. His fury. It was a reflection of his soul. It didn't hurt him in the slightest. It never did. How long has it been since I was away? Has it really been close to 20 years? 20 long-ass years of being away from my screwed-up biological family? I wonder what my so-called mother is doing now. If the rumors about her are in fact true, she is either doing one of two things. Fucking my Uncle Jaime or fucking one of her male relatives if Jaime isn't around to do it himself. Now that my asshole for a father is dead and unable to put her to the sword, she'll no doubt spread her legs for just about anyone, thought the man while lightning flashed off in the darkness for a second and rode the wild waves on his tiny raft. The man in question wore dark boots made of the strongest material money could buy, as well as baggy pants, which he designed to be water resistant for just this sort of situation with the rain coming down. His shirt was a mixture of red, black, and orange together in an intricate pattern of swirls that looked like the whirlpools drunk sailors from Bravos would tell in bar taverns. A thin layer of chainmail was underneath the shirt, but this type of chainmail was lightweight, so in the event of falling into the water, he wouldn't sink like a stone. His face was sharp, handsome looking if not for the red cloth hiding his face and keeping the water out of his mouth. His right eye was blood red with 3 tomos in them, and the other one was a purple color worthy of any Targaryen with a ripple-like pattern in it. His hair was dark spiky blondish color and it was a long mane running down the back of his neck while being protected by a large straw hat. On his back was a sword made of Valyrian steel in the shape of what his adopted mother called a katana from the days of Valyria was still strong. Also, unlike other swords of Valyrian steel, this one was crimson red, and had a light of sorts shining from the blade. Such a weapon had served this man faithfully for years now, cutting down man after man, warrior after warrior, and monster after monster in human flesh he had seen while in Essos. This man had traveled from Essos to Bravos and back again to Essos without fear or worry for his life. This man had fought with sellswords from the Second Sons to the Golden Company itself. This man had been in the fighting pit arenas in the city of Meereen, fought Westeros knights, Bravosi swordsmen, and even a few Dothraki horsemen. The man's name? Naruto of House Baratheon. Though if he were honest with himself, the man preferred to be Naruto of House Uzumaki since his surrogate mother was more of a mother to him than Cersei ever was in the few short years being around her. His beloved surrogate mother, who died when he was 12 from an illness, one of many at the time running through Essos. It had been a devastating blow to the boy, as she was the mother he always wanted, and denounced his bitch of mother by blood for the woman who wasn't, yet loved him all the same. Kushina had taught him much during his time with her and had been a dedicated student in math, reading, writing, and how the way of the world truly worked instead of the way fairy tale books told it. The world was cruel, dark, and people could be just as cruel and dark from what Kushina had taught him about major events in Westeros. From the Rains of Castamere incident involving Tywin Lannister crushing 2 houses who rebelled against him to what Gregor Clegane and Armory Lorch did to Elia Martell and her 2 children during the sacking of King's Landing to name just a few. In fact, in recent years, much of the treachery done throughout Westeros was started by House Lannister with Tywin Lannister being the source of them. Even the sacking of King's Landing was done through Tywin Lannister by marching his army under the ruse of coming to aid the Mad King for when Robert's army began its assault. Only to turn on the Mad King and began the start of the horrible act that helped make the man feared and influential man throughout the 7 kingdoms. Then there was the Greyjoy Rebellion, which had happened a few years after Naruto was sent away and the Kraken King had been forced to bend the knee to King Robert. At the same time, Balon Greyjoy gave up his only remaining son to House Stark after losing the others during the fighting. It was sometime later that Naruto was later found on the dirty streets of Meereen by a sellsword, who once served the Golden Company in his younger years, and was in need of making a few gold dragons. The man saw the boy fighting off some questionable people, slavers most likely, and even saw the boy successfully kill one of the greedy fools, who the sellsword recognized as someone who lost all of his money in the fighting pits just earlier that day. The fools went about seeking to collect some measure of compensation for his losses by targeting someone and chose the young male Baratheon. Not that the sore losers got a chance to enjoy themselves in terms of capturing their prey once Naruto showed off his unorthodox and unpredictable fighting abilities. The sellsword approached Naruto once the slavers were on the ground bleeding, broken, and most likely dead in the next few hours. After hearing the boy's story, the man offered to train him how to fight, compete in the fighting pits against all comers from all over the world, and become truly a warrior few could match on the battlefield. How could Naruto say no to that? The answer? He couldn't. But that wasn't all. In the time Naruto had been away from Westeros and King's Landing, the boy had begun to have dreams of another time. Another life with other places. Doing things with his own 2 hands and feet he never thought possible in this world growing up. Naruto did not understand it at first, but over time, his highly intellectual mind began to understand, as the gods entered his mind, and told him of the truth about his previous life. They told him everything. His name they put in Robert's mouth, the eyes being given to him as a gift, which Robert mistook for Targaryen blood clashing with his Baratheon blood, and how destiny would be reshaped throughout the world once more now that he was in it. Flashback some time ago. Where am I? What's going on? Asked Naruto to himself while he was looking around in the darkness and briefly wondered if the stranger itself had come for his life. You are here because I wish it mortal, said the dark raspy voice of a malicious entity hovering over the boy. The stranger, whispered Naruto in shock and a hint of fear while the stranger laughed at him. Yes. I am the stranger. Though I go by so many other names. Some older one I miss being called. The Death God. The end of all things alive. But in another lifetime in connection to you, I was called the Shinigami. Said the stranger while Naruto stared up at him and had a sense of recondition around the last name. So, you are in fact one of the old gods, surmised Naruto with the Shinigami, or rather the stranger was laughing yet again. Yes. One of the old gods. One of the oldest actually. Death really has no age since it is eternal and never-ending. As to why I am here, child, is because I have needed you in this realm just as many did in another lifetime long before today, said the stranger before he waved his hand and images of Naruto revealed themselves to the boy and the deed done in them. Much to the child's shock, awe, and even a hint of joy knowing about a past life where he did many incredible things. It was quite the legacy. Not that I am complaining or anything, but I didn't think the stranger would need a champion. Why choose me? Surely there are others more honorable and worthy for the task? Questioned Naruto with the stranger shaking his head no. There are none. Not yet. There is another who could be my champion, but I have seen into the future many years from now. Events will play out where the one I could choose to be my champion, as well as the champion of the other gods watching over the world would arrive too late to take up the mantle. Wickedness, cruelty, betrayal, and other dark things will dig in too deep to be removed by the time it's too late to fight the true darkness that is to come. Normally, I would not be allowed to intervene regardless of my status as one of the more powerful deities among my brethren, but given how events played out, the chaos, and the destruction caused by the late arrival of those needed will be too late. As such, the night you were born, I took your soul from the many in the cycle of reincarnation, and placed it in the stillborn child your parents were meant to have instead of the living breathing offspring you yourself became through me, said the stranger while Naruto's eyes widened. You are the reason my eyes are different. Exclaimed Naruto since he knew his 2 eyes were special despite knowing his biological parents thought otherwise. Yes. My gifts to you from another time to help in your future quest and the trials to come. You may have also noticed your uncanny ability to sense others and their overall intentions through their emotions. A family trait from your past life I felt would be put to good use. Not to mention the energy that is chakra your past life used, though in this day and age, many would simply call it magic, said the stranger while more images of Naruto's past life showed themselves and one in particular caught his attention. His surrogate mother Kushina was in one of them. Why is my mother in that one? Has she been brought back to life again like you did with me? Asked Naruto, with the stranger smiling further. For the most part, yes. Sadly, even I am bound by certain rules. Rules that cannot be broken. While I could bring Kushina back to life from the reincarnation cycle, she is not my champion, or any champion of the gods. As such, your past life's mother will have no memory of you from that time in this one. Not even in dreams. At best, I could only give her the maternal instincts needed to raise you properly. I felt it was owed to her after she was killed the night you were born in your past life. My way of providing compensation for that moment in time. I also chose to bring her back because I knew what your current biological parents would do in terms of shipping you away, and that you would need a mother, even a surrogate, to help in your future development. After all, who better to be your surrogate mother in this life to raise you than the one you had in your past life? Said the stranger, with Naruto nodding, since there was no better a candidate. So, what happens now? Asked Naruto curiously. Now you train. Train your mind. Train your body. You must forge yourself into becoming a warrior and leader this world needs in order to survive. Good luck, said the stranger before he vanished from Naruto's mind. House Baratheon's motto is "Ours is the Fury." I will become that fury. I will become the fury, thought Naruto while clenching his fists. End flashback. And now Naruto was coming home to rule over the 7 kingdoms to fulfill his destiny given to him, the gods old and new. Provided this ugly-ass ship in front of him would move out of the way of him and the storm his power created when at sea. The silence. Euron Greyjoy loved the storms the sea brought. In his mind, he was the storm. The first, the last, and everything in between that was within his reach. The man had sailed through all the seas the world had to offer, seeing new places, burning them down if it suited his ever-twisted mood. The exiled Greyjoy had gone about his traveling the world as a man born on the Iron Islands by pillaging, raped, murdered, and taken just about whatever life had to offer. Did the man care about the consequences? No. He had the drowned god on his side. He was the herald of change. The storm that would blow through all the ships, the men, and anything else that was caught up in it. No one could stand in his way. No one. Not even this tiny insignificant raft heading in his path. What fool goes into a storm, my storm, in just a raft? Does this moron wish to join the drowned god? No matter. I am feeling generous today. I'll destroy his raft and let the fool sink to the bottom of the sea. Besides, I doubt whoever is on the tiny thing has any items of value, thought Euron Greyjoy while watching the man in the raft look up at him with an impassive look on his face. Before the man on the raft drew a sword from his back and lightning struck the blade to make it glow brightly in the darkness of the storm. It was like watching fire and lightning mixed together, spawning an unholy creation in the form of a sword in the hands of someone unworthy of such power. Euron didn't even remember barking out orders to his men, who he had enslaved years ago, to obey him. It wasn't hard to break their wills to serve his own, as each of them had their tongues cut out one by one, with each crew member watching it happen. Euron made them all mute so he did not have to hear their protests to his orders when they were given, and silenced any form of mutiny they might create. But now Euron almost wished he could hear their voices while they screamed and tried to convince him that they should flee. Almost. Ours is the fury. Those were the words echoed through the storm. Euron knew them to be the house motto of the Baratheons. Spoken softly and yet heard as clear as a sunny day despite the storm surrounding the two opposites staring at each other through it. Almost as if the motto was bound to the storm that Euron Greyjoy himself thought was his own and herald his return one day to the Iron Islands to claim the salt throne his weak older brother currently sat on. But now Euron thought differently from where he stood on his ship. For another to possess such power of the storm, to command the lightning, the fire, and the winds in a way that it usurped Euron's own connection, was something else entirely. And it was proven when the figure on the raft made a horizontal slash with his crimson sword, which sent a literal wave of power, colored crimson like the sword's blade, toward his ship. His ship. It cut through the water, the winds, the storm itself, and headed right for the silence with a fury not unlike House Baratheon embraced with a passion. Acting on instinct, Euron dived for the floor, burying himself deep into the wood of his ship as humanly possible. Part of his mind screaming at him to flee, to escape from this new force of power that outmatched his own connection to the seas and the storms they brought with them. But Euron had blocked it out. It served no purpose to think, much less act like a frightened child, or one of those highborn women in their castles for that matter. He was a Ironborn. True Ironborn. And the Ironborn did not flee. They made others flee. They made others tremble. They made others fall in submission and pay the iron price. Sadly, his beliefs on this matter meant very little due to the man's ship being hit by the wave of energy. Said energy had not only cut through the entirety of his ship, killing much of his enslaved crew in the process in a most violent fashion, but somehow the act managed to set his ship on fire, and burning everything around him into ash. Himself included. How? How could this happen? I am the storm. The first and the last. How can I die when I am the drowned god's herald? Thought Euron while his body burned and slowly turned to ash with the rest of the ship and crew. And with that final thought running through his cruel Ironborn mind, Euron Greyjoy of House Greyjoy knew no more. His body not turned to ash became part of the sea and was given to the drowned god along with the rest of his ship and crew. With Naruto. Naruto smirked at the sight of his handiwork. The destroyed and burning ship in front of him sinking into the deep blue ocean floor was something that needed to be destroyed. His sensory skills, honed after years of training mentally and physically, had allowed him to sense the ship was filled with suffering. Filled with sorrow. Filled with pain. And one figure among all of them filled with hate. The leader, no doubt. The source of the crew's suffering, sorrow, and pain since being a part of the ship. Originally, Naruto thought about taking the ship for his own. Kill the captain. Liberate the crew. Sail to the nearest port and let them do whatever they wanted in life. But as he dived deeper and sensed the emotions of the crew, Naruto saw the crew was broken by their sadistic captain beyond repair. Sure, he could kill the captain, claim the ship and its crew for his own. Treat them a hell of a lot better than the one leading them now. But that wouldn't change anything. They were too broken in mind and body to think their new master would be an improvement over the old one. They would still suffer. Still live in anguish. The brutality the crew had endured by this hated-filled individual was too much for them. Death was the only recourse and merciful act Naruto could perform at this point. And as such, the young Baratheon did just that with a single swing of his sword. It was almost a shame no one was around to see him do that. Well, no one alive outside of himself to see him do that. Next stop? King's Landing and the Iron Throne that his sadistic moron for a half-brother bastard by the name of Joffrey was currently sitting on. It was high time to correct the mistakes made and being made at the heart of the Seven Kingdoms. Chapter 2 Claiming the Iron Throne. Naruto arrived in Blackwater Bay without incident. Oh, he got a lot of looks from the old man, who was the harbor master when arriving at King's Landing. No doubt due to his own unique transportation being a raft when arriving and stepping out before watching it sink. Your, name? Asked the harbor master while Naruto glanced at him for a second before dropping off a few gold dragons in the man's hands. My name is Don't of House Exist, remarked Naruto with the harbor master looking at the gold dragons for a second and nodded. Right. Thank you, don't exist. Carry on, replied the harbor master while Naruto simply smirked and walked toward his intended destination. The Red Keep. The Iron Throne. To his birthright. But first, he had a few days to burn, and decided walk through the city was required for those few days to get a feel of the city itself along with the people living within its walls. Easier said than done given how the stench and the overall decay the city was currently in right now. The stench of horse shit and human shit mixing together to create some really horrible smells that burned his nose. Smells that should never have come into existence, but did thanks to the lack of maintenance the city needed to keep it clean, and the people living in it, healthy. Naruto was surprised a plague had yet to manifest here. Of course, perhaps the place was already filled with so many horrible things, even diseases had standards, and chose not to fester here. To think my father let it get this bad. Joffrey probably is making it even worse from the people openly being vocal against my half-brother, thought Naruto while he was walking through the streets and seeing all sorts of problems in Flea Bottom. Piles of shit and piss on the ground. People lying in alleys starving. Dying or begging for food. Their bodies had been ravaged by disease, starvation, dehydration, or all of the above. Not only that, but some desperate women were openly whoring themselves out in public to make just enough money to get by on today alone. No doubt to feed their families and children, if they had any. It sickened Naruto to no end. Instead of making King's Landing being a great city unlike any other, his father and half-brother had made the place into a damn cesspool. To make matters worse, the people were up in arms about Joffrey apparently ordering the death of multiple people, including babies no less. The City Watch personally carrying out the orders with the Lord Commander Janos Slint having led them and doing it himself. Said Lord Commander would soon be found one day later dead, stripped naked of his armor, inner clothing, and hanging from a building by his own intestinal tract. His cock cut off, stabbed into his forehead with a knife, and the words "I am a baby killer" cut right into his chest just below the neck. And while the masses tried to figure out who did it, the young Baratheon was whistling a jaunty tune with a skip in his step. The House of Black and White would be proud of him if they knew he had killed the asshole in broad daylight without anyone even noticing it happen. Naruto of course knew why Joffrey ordered the deaths of so many people since they were all Robert's bastard children. Each of them had a claim to the Iron Throne through the man's whoring bringing about their conception. Apparently, the eldest of the rumored 20 bastards, named Gendry Waters, was missing, and a hunt for him had begun throughout the Seven Kingdoms when it was discovered his blacksmith for a master had sold him to the Night's Watch. The young bastard of King Robert was only a few years younger than Naruto himself, but if legitimized by royal decree, Gendry had a claim to the Iron Throne after Naruto himself since Joffrey was younger than both of them. That and Joffrey wasn't even Robert's by blood. Anyone who understood biology in terms of family traits could tell you that if they saw both parents along with the child standing side by side. But the fact remained that Joffrey had begun murdering Robert's bastard children and by blood connection, Naruto's half-siblings. Nearly 20 half-siblings snuffed out simply due to Joffrey secretly fearing competition by those who would easily be better kings or just rulers in general over himself. No doubt their shared mother had something to do with the fear-induced desire to kill all of Robert's illegitimate offspring, and the idea was planted mostly out of spite for her pig of a husband long after his death. Upon entering the Red Keep, Naruto silently made his way to the throne room. No one stopped him, but the man knew the Kingsguard and Lannister soldiers stationed here at Cersei's request/command were watching him. Not that it mattered. Naruto could best each and every one of them if needed and not break a sweat in the process. Making his way to the throne room, Naruto clearly heard shouting, screaming, a young girl pleading for her life, and of course Joffrey being the sadistic asshole word of mouth told the Baratheon he would be before meeting him. As he silently entered the room, the young Baratheon saw a girl with red hair on the ground, trembling, and pleading with Joffrey to be merciful. How she did nothing to deserve his wrath, even if her traitorous brother was leading a traitorous army from the north down south, and clashing with Lannister forces from the west being led by Tywin Lannister. Moving through the shadows of the crowd, Naruto moved closer to the Iron Throne with calculated precision. Each step forward was a step with a purpose. A silent purpose, but a purpose all the same. This purpose? Move into position to stop his idiot half-brother from hurting the girl further with the crossbow sitting comfortably on his lap like a loving pet. Of course, Joffrey would see the crossbow as a pet and treat it as such. It could be used to hurt others and torture them slowly with pain if one knew where to aim the arrow. Naruto would even wager the brat secretly had an erection hidden somewhere behind his pants and was hiding it behind the crossbow easily enough because his dick was so small. I mean by the gods, the brat was so skinny. So frail. So thin. How can anyone take this brat seriously as a king? Or want to serve him, regardless of the oath made when a king is crowned? Even the most loyal of Kingsguard must have had some desire to run their swords through Joffrey's back or front. Hell, his uncle Jaime did it to the previous king, and still the man got to keep his position when many demanded he be sent to the wall. Grandfather Tywin Lannister exerting his influence had something to do with it, no doubt. What is the meaning of this? Demanded one Tyrion Lannister, walking in with his trusty cell sword Bronn by his side along with several members of the City Watch. Interesting. Uncle Tyrion in the flesh. And he was made hand of the king no less. No doubt until grandfather comes here to take over the responsibilities once the war is over or close to it, thought Naruto while moving closer to see how this played out. Someone gets the girl something cover herself with, commanded Tyrion, and Sandor Clegane quickly moved to obey. Again, an interesting development. An actual Lannister who does not have darkness in his heart, or the level of cruelty others possess. No wonder grandfather despises him. Tyrion could be full grown, yet Tywin would still despise him for being more of a Lannister like himself, thought Naruto while his mind stored that in his head for later. What is wrong with you? What kind of boy threatens and hurts an innocent girl? Asked Tyrion while Sansa was slowly able to stand with the Hound standing and holding her. I am punishing her, replied Joffrey like it was the natural order of things. For what? She not fighting in a war, you half-wit. Countered Tyrion angrily, knowing the more beaten up Sansa Stark was, the greater the threat Robb Stark and the North would become during the war. You can't talk to me like that. The king does as he likes, exclaimed Joffrey with his own anger surfacing at being talked down to by his uncle. You are no king. Nor are you a prince. Just a boy who thinks himself one, countered Tyrion while Joffrey looked ready to give the order to have his uncle killed. Naruto couldn't allow that. I agree. He is not a king. Nor a prince, said Naruto while walking through the crowd and gaining the attention of everyone in the room. And who the fuck are you? Demanded Joffrey while Naruto chuckled and ignored the sound of swords being unsheathed by some of the men in the room. Why Joffrey, I'm hurt. How could you forget about me? Of course, you were just a baby at the time and we never actually saw each other. And in truth, I'm not surprised Mother never told you about me given the ever-painful history she feels her life endured through my birth. But in case you haven't pieced it together, we are brothers. Brothers, said Naruto while he walked toward Joffrey, ignoring the defensive actions of the Hound, Bronn, the City Watch, and the Kingsguard all reaching for their weapons. What? What are you talking about, your stupid little man? I have no other siblings outside of Myrcella and Tommen, replied Joffrey while Naruto chuckled again as he got closer. That is not entirely accurate. You see, before you were born, there was one child brought into the world during a night when a fierce storm blew all around King's Landing. It was a massive storm. Biggest and largest in the history of all the 7 kingdoms. It was as if the old gods and the new were bringing something into the world in a dramatic fashion that only they could produce. During that time while the storm raged, my father Robert of House Baratheon, king of the 7 kingdoms, was with our mother, as she screamed out in pain, and gave birth to a child with dark blonde hair with blue eyes. In the room at the time of this child's birth were a group of handmaidens, the hand of the King Jon Arryn, and Grand Maester Pycelle, replied Naruto before walking past a still cautious, yet curious Tyrion, and was ignoring the armed men watching his every move with even more caution. What do I care about this story? It doesn't concern me, remarked Joffrey while Naruto let out an even louder chuckle. Oh, but it does. You see, this child was thrown away by his parents for numerous, and ultimately stupid reasons. They didn't disown him officially, but the king declared his son to be stillborn so no one would know about the child showing off some Targaryen features from his father's grandmother's side of the family. To that end, he sent his son away to Essos, never intending to see his child again, and went about his future years drinking, hunting, and whoring with countless women. Now, as to how this story pertains to you, my dear brother, it's quite simple. I am that child he discarded so long ago. I am the son of King Robert of House Baratheon. Not only that, dear Joffrey, but between us, I am also the oldest, and by right of succession if not by blood, the Iron Throne is mine to claim. Declared Naruto, with many in the room gasping in shock, awe, and even horror at his declaration. Lies. I am the eldest son and king of the 7 kingdoms. You have no proof to your claim as king, exclaimed Joffrey in a whining tone when he protested his words. No proof? Someone summons our mother. Tell her, the prodigal son she threw away has returned, said Naruto while staring right into Joffrey's eyes. You heard him. Get the queen at once, commanded Tyrion to several members of the City Watch when he saw no one move to obey the young supposed Baratheon. You are an idiot. My mother will never acknowledge you as her son, much less be my older brother, said Joffrey in a smug tone while Naruto leaned down so he was more eye level with the blonde-haired boy. There are other sources outside of my mother who can confirm my story, including the spider himself. Even if Pycelle tries to side with you on this, I know the spider will not. The man cannot lie. It goes against his position as the Master of Whispers, for he would never be trusted again if that were the case. And in the event both do lie in my presence about this, I will have their heads, and I will see to it they suffer greatly for it, whispered Naruto in a cold tone that promised pain to any who lie to his face. What is the meaning of this? Who are you? How dare you stand in the presence of my son? Exclaimed Cersei, running into the room with her cousin and an only recently made knight Lancel Lannister, trying to keep up with her. Another frail-looking Lannister. A submissive type tendency from what Naruto could sense from the blonde-haired man, and another interesting fact was that it happened to be connected to Cersei. Whatever hold the woman had on Lancel, it was clearly powerful enough to make the man do whatever she wanted to do, and Naruto suspected it might be of a sexual nature. At least that was what his sense of smell told him, given the scent of the two were covered in the same type of soap only a woman would use for a bath. Lancel wouldn't be near Cersei when she was taking a bath unless he was in the bath with her and they were not getting clean. Even the high-end armors the young man was wearing didn't hide the simple fact Lancel was another skinny young brat himself. Clearly thinking that fancy armor made the man over the man making the armor. Honestly, what was it with his mother's side of House Lannister producing such frail-looking men as of late? Thank the gods his father's blood was so damn strong that it overpowered such frailty. I know it has nearly been 20 years since you last saw me Queen Regent, but even still, a mother should know her own child by the sight of him, whispered Naruto before turning around and removed the cloth and straw hat around his face when he did. Naruto, whispered Cersei with wide eyes, yet her voice carried through the room like an echo. In the flesh, after almost 20 long years away on the other side of the world, by your own hands no less, replied Naruto with a small bow. No. No, it cannot be you. You were sent away to Essos to die, or at least to become one of the Unsullied. That was my command to the stupid handmaiden who took you there, exclaimed Cersei while she had a look of denial on her face. Yes, well, my surrogate mother had other plans. I didn't become an Unsullied. Which is a good thing too, because I spent my time with quite a few women there when I wasn't in the fighting pits. Don't worry though, unlike my father, I didn't sire any bastards like you no doubt feared I would if allowed to keep my cock. Still, I imagine those women must miss me deeply after all this time. I did spoil them something fierce when we fucked, said Naruto offhandedly while Bronn and Tyrion smirked. Only a Baratheon would say that about the women they were with, thought Bronn and Tyrion at the same time. As for why I am here, well, I think it would be obvious. I am here to claim what is mine by right and by blood. And what is mine by right and by blood just happens to be this ugly chair my little brother is sitting on while he pretends to be king. And a poor king at that, said Naruto while Joffrey glared, and soon Cersei did the same. You have no claim to the Iron Throne. You were declared stillborn, and as such you are no longer the legitimate heir, countered Cersei while Joffrey smirked. That would only be the case if the declaration were true. Seeing as I am alive and still standing here in front of you, it's not. Therefore, the declaration is invalid, replied Naruto while Cersei scowled knowing he was right. I have not seen my son in nearly 20 years. There is no way to tell you are him. For all I know, you are a fraud pretending to be my son, said Cersei while knowing there was no way to prove this man was her son from that one night all those years ago. Isn't there? Grand Maester Pycelle, how good of you to come. I imagine word reaching you of my return put an extra kick in your step. And you brought friends. How nice, said Naruto while seeing a nervous Grand Maester Pycelle quickly walk into the room with a calm Varys and an extremely curious Peter Baelish. Grand Maester Pycelle, is there any way to confirm this man was the son I gave Robert nearly 20 years ago? Asked Cersei while the Grand Maester glanced from Naruto to her while seeing that denounce his claims or else. Look, she was shooting him. None, my queen. Robert's child died in birth. His anger that night was matched only by the storm which surrounded the castle walls on the night in question, said Pycelle with Joffrey and Cersei smirking at him. See, the man lies. Kill him, commanded Joffrey while some more men moved to draw their swords. But were stopped when a heavy, invisible pressure suddenly filled the room and made a lot of people sweat nervously. The first man to point their sword, spear, or any other weapon on hand at me will die a painful death that will be told in stories and songs for generations to come. So if any of you wish to see tomorrow to fuck your woman or a whore in a brothel, I strongly suggest that you decide against reaching for a weapon, commanded Naruto while he glared at the Hound first before members of the City Watch, Lannister men, and Kingsguard met his unusual eyes. Those eyes. Just like remember them all those years ago. The reason for Robert's desire to fuck his whores when the reason behind it wasn't surrounding Lyanna Stark, thought Cersei bitterly. Now, as to the fact you say there is no proof, Grand Maester, I wish to ask a few short, yet simple questions pertaining to my legitimacy. Do you object? Said Naruto while now focusing on the elderly man. And no, my lord, replied Pycelle with his eyes unable to look away from the warrior in front of him. He also missed the hitched noise Bronn made when seeing the various sigils on Naruto's left arm plate, though the others, namely Tyrion, did not. The two shared a glance at each other with Tyrion's eyes demanding answers to Bronn's response to seeing the sigils. Tell me something, Grand Maester, if the king declares something about a child he sees, say, being a stillborn baby, yet the child itself isn't stillborn, is the declaration made by him valid? Asked Naruto calmly while Pycelle stuttered for a moment. No, my lord. Such declarations are not valid. In fact, to enforce false declarations goes against the seven as decreed by the High Septon. No liege lord, high lord, or even peasant would obey such a declaration if it was made by the king, said Pycelle while Naruto nodded. I see. Also, when the child nearly 20 years ago was born, you were in the room when the queen gave birth that night, correct? Asked Naruto with Pycelle nodding since it was in fact true since it was required for a maester, much less the Grand Maester, to attend to the royal family when the queen was in the process of giving birth. Yes, my lord, answered Pycelle simply. And prior to the King Robert's false declaration of the child being stillborn, the child in question was in fact alive. Isn't that correct? Asked Naruto with Pycelle sweating harder when the pressure increased when he refused to reply immediately. Yes, my lord. King Robert was quite happy the child was born. Called him a Maelstrom due to his birth being around a storm and the child screaming out during it. He called the child his son, replied Pycelle with Cersei glaring at him, but at the moment the old man feared young man in front of him over Tywin Lannister's daughter. But something happened that changed, didn't it? When the eyes of the boy had suddenly shifted from Baratheon blue eyes all Baratheons are known to possess for two differently colored eyes. One was a demonic red. The other one, a purple shade worthy of anyone from House Targaryen. Correct? Asked Naruto with Pycelle nodding once again. It was most unusual to see after it happened. No one knew why. I concluded that the reason it happened was due to King Robert's grandmother was Targaryen and some of her traits, namely the eyes, were showing themselves. One was successful, the other was not, and as a result King Robert went into a rage about it. He officially declared the child stillborn, but the boy himself lived in King's Landing for roughly 4 years prior to his departure, said Pycelle with Naruto nodding. And these optical features surrounding the child, can they be duplicated outside of the boy's own bloodline? Asked Naruto with Pycelle shaking his head no. No. They cannot. Short of the boy becoming a man and having a child with those same optical traits, it is not possible. Only the boy has such unique traits. No one else in all the history of the Seven Kingdoms has 2 different types of eyes in that fashion or color, said Pycelle with Naruto's smile increasing. So short of me having a child, the chances of someone impersonating Robert's long-lost and presumed dead son are practically non-existent. All due to the unique nature of the boy's eyes being one of a kind. Concluded Naruto with Pycelle nodding and ignoring the death glare from Cersei. That is correct, my lord, replied Pycelle humbly. Tell me, Grand Maester, are my eyes identical to the ones you saw all those years ago? Asked Naruto with Pycelle looking at the eyes in question with fear and felt the intense presence behind those unusual soul-piercing orbs before falling to his knees in despair at the truth looking him right in the face. Forgive me, your grace. I didn't want to lie to you. I am a frail old man who fears for his life at the hands of the Lannisters and their power, pleaded Pycelle with Naruto snarled at him before focusing on the spider watching everything. If anyone else is not convinced, perhaps the spider would care to reveal what he knows about myself. I highly doubt my existence went unnoticed by your little birds. Though I am sure they had to earn their reward for such good pieces of information on me, said Naruto with Varys bowing slightly. Indeed. The man here is in fact Robert's child. A Baratheon both in name and blood. I was on the docks the day the boy was sent away to Essos with the handmaiden charged with sending him to Astapor to become an Unsullied. All at the command to the queen herself. King Robert didn't know she wanted that to happen, but even if he did know, I am unsure what his reaction to it would be given what the masters of Astapor do to boys in order to turn them into Unsullied, said Varys while Tyrion and Bronn flinched since they knew and were glad that never happened to them. It's a good thing my father never thought about it. Then again, my own deformity might have had a hand in it. I doubt the masters of Astapor could turn a dwarf into an Unsullied despite my father, who would no doubt pay them to try if he had the chance, thought Tyrion to himself. There were times he thanked the gods for making him a dwarf. Not always, but there were times his size did benefit the various situations he found himself in. My little birds have kept an eye on him for a while, and yes, you did make them earn their right to be my birds when you were in Essos. I must say your actions, while they were most impressive from what I have heard you starting out in the fighting pits of Meereen around the age of 12 years old following the death of your handmaiden for a surrogate mother. I offer my condolences to you by the way. She was a good woman to have loved and raised you as she did, said Varys since he had feared the plan of getting the boy to return once a man had been ruined, which was why he refocused his attention on Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen in taking the Iron Throne. Thank you, Lord Varys. Please continue, said Naruto with Varys bowing again. You eventually made your handler so much money, he had no need to have you fighting there, and even gave you a generous sum of the profits earned to travel all throughout Essos. You eventually joined the Second Sons for a while, turned down several promotions to be a lieutenant or a captain. Before long you were recruited by the Golden Company, and again turned down several promotions since it involved being behind in battle over the idea of fighting at the front. After a time with them, you parted ways, traveled the rest of the world, spent time in Bravos, and learned many things there too. Including how to speak in several languages fluently to the point where no one would think you were not from said places, said Varys with Naruto nodding since it was all true. It doesn't matter now. I am the king. I was coronet and have the blessing of the High Septon himself. Exclaimed Joffrey while Naruto turned to face his half-brother and made the boy sweat more under his gaze before walking toward the skinny little brat. All of which means nothing. You are no longer king. I am the eldest between the two of us, Joffrey. By right of royal blood and the rules of succession in that regard, I am the true king of the Seven Kingdoms, and I will not allow someone like you to sit on my throne. Get out of my seat. Now! Commanded Naruto while Joffrey glared up at him despite the whimper coming out of his mouth. No! You can't make me, said Joffrey like a child having to give up his favorite toy to someone else, and watched Naruto lean closer so he was inches from his face. Now, you see, that is where you are wrong, dear brother. I can make you. I will make you. And if you don't get out of my seat in the next 5 seconds, I will beat you within an inch of your pathetic life before throwing you out of the Red Keep onto the shit-filled streets where people are waiting to finish the job I started. So, by all means, resist. I will take great joy in beating you into an unrecognizable lump of flesh before I let the people calling for your blood for what you did to my bastard siblings have their way in finishing you off, whispered Naruto while Joffrey glanced at his mother, who paled at the thought of her son being beaten to death by the lowborn outside the Red Keep, and mouthed, "Do as he says, for now to him." Slowly, Joffrey put down the crossbow that was once in his shaking hands, and put it on the floor to the side of the Iron Throne. Slowly, the boy got out of the Iron Throne, and he stepped aside for his older brother to calmly sit down as the official king of the 7 kingdoms. After Naruto ripped the crown off the boy's head, of course, and put it on his own while making a mental note to have his own crown made since this was too small. All hail King Naruto of House Baratheon. Long may he reign. Someone had said in the back of the crowd watching this drama play out. Someone Naruto had paid discreetly 10 gold dragons to say just what he paid him to say for this moment. The person had been surprised by this, but for 10 gold dragons, one did not ask questions, and only obeyed when paid. Thank you. Now, first order of business as king, Sandor Clegane, please escort my dear brother to his room, and ensure he does not leave it for any reason until I say he can leave it, said Naruto with Sandor nodding and moved to escort an angry Joffrey back to his room. This can't be happening. My plans, my schemes, my every move to control the throne as Queen Regent is being thwarted. Thought Cersei with her mind going into a small panic. Lancel Lannister, please escort my shocked mother to her room. I imagine the sight of me and my return has overstimulated her mind and she needs rest. See to it that she does rest until at a later time of my choosing my mother will be allowed to leave it. Also, tell her she is expect to see me eventually for personal matters which we need to discuss in regards to the future. Important private things that cannot be ignored any longer, ordered Naruto with Lancel nodding hesitantly at him before making sure a shocked Cersei was followed him. And what is to become of me, your grace? Or should I call you my nephew since I am your mother's brother? Asked Tyrion with Naruto glancing at him with a small smile. You can stay, uncle. As for your position, I am making your station as Hand of the King permanent instead of temporary. And you can address me how you like despite my title as king. In fact, order everyone on the small council to gather for an important meeting in the small council room in a few days while news of my return and position reaches the people throughout King's Landing. We have many important things that need to be addressed. Important things that cannot be delayed. Not while I am king, commanded Naruto with Tyrion nodding and moved to carry out the order. Small council chambers a few days later. Naruto was already sitting down when members of the small council came into the room with looks of interest, curiosity, nervousness, and uncertainty clearly seen on their faces. It was no surprise to him that they looked, if not felt this way since he was a wild card, a new piece added to the game board, and no one here had a way to deal with such an event like this. King Robert had been easy to run circles around due only showing up for 4 meetings in his 20 years as king. Jon Arryn had to spend his days cleaning up Robert's messes as best he could in his old age with little success. The same for Ned Stark, despite being a younger man compared to Jon when he became Hand of the King and lost his head for it. All thanks to Joffrey being a sadistic piece of shit for a king and even broke his word because he felt a king didn't need to keep his word simply because he was a king. Annoying little shit. Speaking of Joffrey, the little whiny brat cared more about hurting his own subjects over doing any form of ruling as king in the first place. The fool left important matter be dealt with by the small council and his whiny brother-fucking mother, which Naruto had the shame of saying was his mother by blood. Fortunately, Tyrion had played the game well as the king's hand, even if it was only a temporary position until Tywin Lannister was able to arrive in King's Landing. The dwarf for a Lannister always kept things close to the chest and making sure no one saw his cards. Even the Master of Whispers saw potential for Tyrion in this Game of Thrones to be a key player if allowed to keep his position of power, and no one tried to kill him off. Though whether Naruto allowed this to happen was ultimately up to him now as King of the Seven Kingdoms. The announcement of Naruto being the new, yet again, king after it was revealed he was Robert Baratheon's oldest son and thus his rightful heir as king was still fresh in everyone's mind. No doubt word had reached Renly and Stannis despite the fact he had planned for Varys to send them messages via ravens to explain just how this came about. He hoped the two brothers would stop their power play to take the Iron Throne, return to King's Landing to reclaim their former titles on the small council. Though something told Naruto such hope was pointless given how stubborn his uncles were when they wanted something. Now that the issues surrounding my brother and mother are temporarily resolved for the moment, we need to discuss important issues surrounding the Seven Kingdoms. Starting of course with the war my moron for a sibling started with the North and House Stark. A war that has ultimately spiraled out of control with my two uncles on father's side of the family amassing their own armies to take the Iron Throne for themselves in the belief my father had no true legitimate male heir to claim it, said Naruto while he looked at the Master of Whispers to indicate he start. My little birds tell me Robb Stark has won a recent campaign against Tywin Lannister, capturing your Uncle Jaime in the process. However, the young Stark's advancement has slowed considerably given his supplies are thinning. Not surprising given the size of his army and most impressive. Add that Theon Greyjoy is sailing to the Iron Islands to get the Kraken King to aid the wolf in his fight might also have something to do with it, said Varys while Naruto nodding. I see. Lord Stark has the right idea since he would need ships, but he might have chosen the wrong house to seek an alliance to crush the Lannisters with given what I know of the Ironborn. No doubt Balon Greyjoy will see this as a means to attack the North if the Wolf's Den is mostly empty of those who could defend it. What about my uncles? Stannis and Renly? Asked Naruto while focusing on the other threats to King's Landing. Lord Stannis has marched with his army to fight his brother Renly, who has married one Marjorie Tyrell of the Reach, and now has a little over 100,000 men under his command. His army easily outmatches Stannis' own, though I should mention Lord Stannis also has a red woman from Essos on his side to make up of the lack of numbers. From what I was able to learn, she has converted him to the Lord of Light religion Essos practices. Already she has had the statues of the Seven burned and gained quite a few followers around the island of Dragonstone, said Varys with Naruto's eyes narrowing since he was familiar with the religion. Lord of Light. Bah! Ghastly religion. Stannis has drifted away from the beliefs of his father's father, and all of his Baratheon ancestors. Such a religion has no place here in the Seven Kingdoms, commented Pycelle offhandedly while Naruto closed his side. Renly is doomed. Stannis will win without losing a single soldier, commented Naruto sadly. How? Asked Tyrion since he was certain Renly would have the edge since the numbers he had far exceeded any other army fighting. Stannis doesn't need numbers in the form of military might right now. The Red Woman from Essos is all he needs. Her magical powers are not something to be underestimated, if used properly in the way she will no doubt suggest to him. I've been to Essos and spent a large portion of my life up until recently in that land. The sorcery behind their religion is not something to scoff at, Tyrion. I'm sure even the Master of Whispers here will only reinforce that fact since he was once from Essos too, said Naruto with Tyrion looking at Varys, who nodded grimily since the man had seen, heard, and felt the presence of such dark magic when he was a young boy when a sorcerer had maimed him between his legs. It's true. I did indeed experience such things as a boy. Not something I wish to share with you since it is of a personal nature, but rest assured, the magic behind the Lord of Light is not to be underestimated, as His Grace just mentioned. If Stannis does use her and the dark magic as a means to defeat Renly, I fear it will be an act no one could trace back to Stannis, and thus no one can accuse him of kinslaying, said Varys while Naruto nodded in agreement. If I know my uncle Stannis as well as I think I do, given his own military nature from the stories I have heard in passing about him, the man will no doubt target the one person he knows, who can keep the massive army together. My uncle will target the weak point in all of this, which is Renly himself. Without Renly, the Tyrells will back out of this war while trying to figure out what to do next. Uncle Stannis will take all the bannermen, who once pledged themselves to Renly, and march on King's Landing to secure his right as the next king. All he has to do, is kill his own brother using the Red Woman from the safe distance of his own encampment to ensure complete deniability, said Naruto grimly, with the others on the small council looking either unsure or worried. And what makes you think he will do such a deplorable act, your grace? Asked Pycelle while seeing Naruto's eyes narrowing. Because it is the only option Stannis has open to him. Without her, my uncle cannot win against Renly. She is the instrument from which he will achieve victory over Uncle Renly in this coming fight between brothers, answered Naruto while he looked at everyone in the room with a grave tone in his voice. And should he succeed, not only will Stannis become a kinslayer, if only in secret, but have the numbers needed to attack King's Landing. Both with an army of men and a fleet of ships, added Tyrion with a grim look on his face. Perhaps we can warn Renly of the threat this woman faces. Send an envoy or raven to him. Renly was always the more level-headed of his brothers. And with King Naruto now sitting on the Iron Throne, he might lend his army to defend King's Landing from outside threats, offered Pycelle while he saw Lord Baelish smirking. I can depart right away. I believe Catelyn Stark is also on her way to meet Renly to form an alliance with him and her son against the Lannisters. Since I have a respectable history with both of them, I'm sure I can convince each side to fight for our cause so long as it's against Tywin Lannister's army. No offense to the temporary hand of the king, offered Peter Baelish with a smile on his face. None taken, commented Tyrion, since he didn't like his father either at times. No, replied Naruto coldly. No? Asked Peter with his smile leaving him. You will not be leaving King's Landing for the foreseeable future, Lord Baelish. I forbid it. Commanded Naruto coldly suddenly while he leaned back in his chair and his right hand was tapping on the wood of the table. Not to challenge your decision, your grace, but, why not? Asked Peter while thinking of ways to convince the new king to let him head to Renly's camp to intercept Catelyn and use these events to his advantage. He had been planning to in the next few days and slip out of King's Landing to convince his beloved Catelyn to let Jaime Lannister go in exchange for dear Sansa and Arya Stark returning to the north unharmed. Granted, Arya wasn't here, but Catelyn wouldn't know that, and Peter was certain he could fool his beloved into believing he didn't know she was not in King's Landing when arranging such a move. Of course, the plan to get her to do it involved retrieving Ned Stark's corpse, and the sword ice from their current places in the city to bring to her. Once he did, Peter was certain Catelyn would listen to him, and do what he asked in the name of honor. Granted, it would upset many of the lords from the north, and damage the impressive momentum Robb Stark had acquired since leading his men into battle against Tywin Lannister. The Kingslayer in Robb's possession made for a very valuable bargaining chip, and the young Stark knew this. Everyone knew this, even if you had no experience in war from the start. And to have the young wolf's own mother betray in secret to giving up the Kingslayer would deliver a devastating blow to the wolf's morale. But it was an expected reaction to such a move, and it was what Peter wanted to happen. If successful in his plan, Peter knew the war between House Stark and House Lannister would continue on, with the North going more on the defensive while the Lannister forces would go more on the offensive once word reached them of Jaime being freed. The more prolonged the war became with the Lannisters, the more moves he could make, and weaken all sides being played by his machinations. Now, if he could only convince the new king to let him leave King's Landing. Perhaps with a whore or two would suffice? It worked for Robert. Like father, like son. Why should I trust you to do anything, Lord Baelish? Why should I trust the man who betrayed Lord Stark and the late hand of the king? Asked Naruto with an angry tone in his voice. Lord Stark was a fool. An honorable fool, but a fool nonetheless. I never side with fools, your grace. Surely a man of your expertise when it comes to thinking strategically would understand siding with fools is not wise, offered Peter while Naruto kept a stone-cold visage on his face. Ned Stark was hardly a fool. He believed in justice. He believed in honor. He believed you would side with him. The only thing he did that was foolish was tip his hand too soon to my mother and trusting you to back him in becoming regent and protector of the realm. Ned Stark had the men, the numbers, and the right to sit on the Iron Throne as decreed by my late father prior to his death. Had you backed him with the City Watch, the transition would have been peaceful, without bloodshed, and there would be no war with various houses trying to destroy each other. As it stands, I should run my sword through you, and mount your head on a pike before setting it on fire. Just make a point," said Naruto angrily while glaring at Petyr Baelish, who looked a tad nervous since this was not going the way he wanted. "In my defense, your grace," said Baelish, but was stopped when Naruto raised his hand and shot him a glare. There is no defense for what you did, Lord Baelish. Not only did you betray Ned Stark, you betrayed the final command of my father. In addition to this, I am appalled that you have caused the crown to become 6 million in debt under your watch as Master of Coin. Now, while I may not have been around during the time of the Mad King, I was under the impression the finances of the crown were very much in the black, correct?" said Naruto, with Baelish looking more uncomfortable since he was clearly not used to having his own actions being probed so deeply by someone higher in authority over himself. "Your father had a poor habit with spending the crown's money, your grace. I did what I could to keep the crown out of deeper forms of debt during my time as Master of Coin, but when your father gave me a command, I had no choice but to obey him," defended Petyr, with Naruto's glare increasing. "If that were even remotely true, Lord Baelish, you would have obeyed my father's final command to support Ned Stark in being regent. As of right now, I hereby strip you of your title as Master of Coin. All of your assets are to be seized, including your brothels, and the money made from them will be used to lessen the debt the crown possesses. A debt you made and thus will be owed with your money fitting the bill," said Naruto, with Petyr not liking this piece of news at all. "Your grace, no one can manage the crown's finances like I can. What will become of the brothels themselves? The girls working at each establishment need such a profession because they can do nothing else. Surely you won't close them down?" questioned Petyr, with Naruto scoffing. "Of course not. But as of this moment, you will no longer have access to them, or make money through them. I will call forth the most advanced mathematical minds throughout the 7 kingdoms to take a look at your records and ledgers for the past 20 years to further determine just what you have done during your time here on the small council. I have no doubt that you have not been even remotely honest with your book writing, and as such, I need capable people here to find out what the hell you've done," said Naruto, while Petyr looked very unhappy right now. "I am the Master of Coin for a reason, your grace. Without me to manage the finances, all of King's Landing, if not the 7 kingdoms, will fall apart," protested Petyr, while the young Baratheon king glared at him. "As I said to you earlier, Petyr Baelish, you are no longer Master of Coin, or the owner of the brothels. You are stripped of everything you own, Petyr Baelish, with the exception being the clothing you are wearing now. Be grateful I don't have you thrown out of here naked to be mocked and beaten at my discretion," said Naruto, with his voice full of the authority one would find in a king. "Your grace, I must protest this harsh action. It is unjust," said Petyr, while thinking of all the money, his information network, and the blackmail he had on influential lords being lost to him. "Do not speak to me about what is unjust, Petyr Baelish. You will be confined to a room here in the Red Keep until I say otherwise. Or would you prefer I simply extend your so-called unjust punishment by throwing you in the black cells? Or maybe I should take your head off now and be done with you?" questioned Naruto in a deathly cold tone, with Littlefinger now sweating under his gaze. "No, your grace. I will humbly accept your decision," whispered Petyr in a bitter tone of voice, while Naruto motioned 2 of his Kingsguard to take the man outside. "Not to press the advantage, but you really should kill him now before he has a chance to flee, your grace. Petyr Baelish is very snake-like in nature and has some powerful friends willing to help him out if called upon," said Tyrion, since he never did like Littlefinger and blamed him for what Catelyn Stark did in trying to have him arrested for Bran Stark's attempted murder. "I'm sure he does have friends, Uncle Tyrion. Paid friends. We'll see how long they are his friends when Littlefinger no longer has money to pay them," said Naruto, while he saw Pycelle shifting nervous, but would wait to deal with the man later. "On another related subject discussed earlier, your grace, there is the matter of the North seeking independence from the crown. Even now, Robb Stark is being called the king in the North. If we do not do something soon, other kingdoms may break off as well, and seek their own independence, added Varys with a hint of concern in his voice. Yes. Such an event is something the Seven Kingdoms cannot afford. What is the main reason for the North acting in this manner? Aside from Ned Stark's imprisonment and later on his death? Asked Naruto with Tyrion making a noise since he felt the need to speak. That is quite the long list, I'm afraid. First, it was Ned Stark being arrested on charges of treason in plotting against the late King Robert Baratheon. Second, was Ned Stark's death as you just mentioned. Third would be my father fighting for Joffrey to keep his crown as king. Fourth, are the 2 attempts made on one Bran Stark's life, which Catelyn Stark has blamed on my house, and to be more exact, me. Said Tyrion while wincing at that particular memory. We still have Ned Stark's body? Asked Naruto with Varys nodding. Most of it. I'm afraid the head is on a pike, rotting away as we speak. Joffrey showed it to Lady Sansa in an act of cruelty toward her. The rest of the body was given to hungry dogs on orders by Joffrey until they were done with him. While a majority of the body is still intact for the most part, I would not recommend showing the remains to Lady Stark if she were to ask to see it, said Varys while Naruto nodded with this very presence now giving off cold angry feel to it. Retrieve the body and the head to prepare for the return north to be buried in Winterfell where he belongs. Kill the dogs that Joffrey used to feast on the man's flesh and dump the dead animals in my brother's room with him in it. Every City Watch member bribed into siding with Joffrey and killing Ned Stark's men are to be sent to the wall or put to the sword. Give them all the choice to choose their fate. Speaking of swords, is Ned Stark's weapon of choice ice still in our possession? Said Naruto with Varys nodding. With the King's Justice Ser Island Pain. The very same man who took Ned Stark's head at the command of Prince Joffrey, said Varys while Naruto scowled further. I will deal with him myself. Tyrion, take your sellsword, and some trusted members of the City Watch to secure the sword along with Ned Stark's remains. If anyone gives you crap, use your authority as Hand of the King, and my authority as King to knock them on their ass. I want everything that is Ned Stark in terms of his body and weapon ready for departure back to the north in 2 days as a show of good faith in proving I am not like my idiot brother. Find some suitable and trustworthy Kingsguard to help transport the remains back to Winterfell. Also, send a raven to Robb Stark about how he should send some men back to the north to guard its flank should Balon Greyjoy decide to launch a surprise attack on the north itself. Explain to him that the Greyjoys are a bitter house and will see this as a means to exact some measure of revenge for what they will perceive as past slights, commanded Naruto with Varys nodding. The failed Greyjoy Rebellion and Theon Greyjoy becoming a hostage of House Stark and the North. I will add that to the message, Your Grace, said Varys, knowing that alone would make Robb Stark think to defend his back should the negotiations Theon tried with his father ultimately failed. There is also the issue surrounding the rumors about Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen not being the late King Robert's children. Ned Stark apparently told Stannis about this in a message sent by Raven before his death, and Stannis has decided to share the news with all of the Seven Kingdoms, said Tyrion while mentioning the last one offhandedly to the others. Lies. Joffrey is every bit of royalty as King Robert was in life, protested Pycelle while Naruto directed some killer intent at the once again nervous old man. Grand Maester, do you take anyone in this room for a fool? Asked Naruto while the old man shook his head no. Of course, not Your Grace. It's just, the idea of Joffrey Baratheon being, well, born from that is not something one wishes to believe, replied Pycelle with Naruto nodding since he could see that. And yet deep down, you knew the truth. Which is why, you conspired with Littlefinger, Cersei, and Jaime Lannister to ensure Jon Arryn died. Didn't you? Demanded Naruto while Pycelle sputtered in protest. I did no such thing, Your Grace. I am innocent of any wrong, said Pycelle, but was interrupted by Naruto slamming his fist on the table to the shock of the other two in the room since the act caused the room to shake violently like it had been hit by a storm. Do not lie to me, Pycelle. I hate liars. Yelled Naruto since he had always felt that way about people lying to get what they want and just couldn't take it anymore. It was bad enough he had to deal with it in Essos with the wise masters or rich nobles flaunting their wealth to buy slaves for their amusement. But it even worse with Pycelle and Littlefinger, since those two knew more about lying and deceiving than knowing how to do their own jobs on the small council. Pycelle knew too much, talked too much, and lied too much while acting like a feeble old man at times to make people believe he was not a threat. Which just wasn't true. Petyr Baelish lied to everyone every single damn day, from what Naruto sensed from the man the moment he entered the throne room to see the rumored heir to Robert Baratheon's rule. Hell, Naruto wouldn't be surprised if the man didn't know how to speak the truth, and was the one skill Littlefinger was incapable of doing. Ours is the fury indeed, thought Tyrion and Varys while seeing Pycelle shivering in fear. I'm sorry, Your Grace, whispered Pycelle with Naruto scowling further before taking a very deep breath and regaining control of his temper. I don't want your weak apology, Pycelle. What I want is the truth. Did you or did you not conspire against Jon Arryn and Ned Stark when they got too close to the truth about my brother's real parentage? Asked Naruto with Pycelle nodding, since there was no point in denying it now. Yes, Your Grace. I did. Jon Arryn was looking at Robert's bastards and comparing them to Cersei's 3 children. He borrowed the book detailing the lineage of the 4 great houses of the 7 kingdoms to further gather evidence against your mother. When he asked for the book, I knew the late hand of the king would discover the truth, and I told the queen about it. From there, she conspired with her brother Jaime Lannister, Petyr Baelish, and one other who was capable of poisoning Jon Arryn under everyone's nose. Someone nobody suspected would be capable of doing the dreadful deed, said Pycelle with Naruto frowning, and saw Varys frowning too. Who is this other person? Asked Naruto with Pycelle hesitating for a moment. Jon Arryn's own wife. Lisa Tully Arryn of the Vale. She poisoned him, said Pycelle with Varys and Tyrion looking at him like he just said the White Walkers had crossed the wall. Why would she agree to poison her own husband? Asked Naruto while not seeing the connection to the woman killing her husband and joining in the conspiracy. I might be able to answer that, Your Grace. It is a well-known fact Petyr Baelish was a ward of House Tully in Riverrun. He apparently fell in love with Catelyn Tully, but she was engaged to Brandon Stark, Ned Stark's older brother and future warden of the North prior to Robert's rebellion. After his death at the hands of the Mad King, Catelyn married Ned Stark despite what Petyr had hoped was his second chance to marry the woman of his dreams. Sadly, it was not to be for Petyr Baelish. As for Lisa Tully, she loved Petyr Baelish the same way he loved Catelyn Tully. Unlike her sister, Lisa never warmed up to her husband Jon Arryn, who was a much older man, and would spend his days in King's Landing dealing with King Robert instead of attending to the needs of his wife. If I were to make an educated guess, Lisa Arryn still holds a great deal of love for Petyr Baelish, and he convinced her to do the deed of killing her husband with the poison provided by the Grand Maester here, said Varys with Pycelle nodding. So that's why she was so hell-bent in having me blamed for the death of Jon Arryn. The woman had a very crazed look in her eyes when I spent my short time in the Vale, added Tyrion with Naruto thinking things over in his head. I see. This does pose a serious problem. One that cannot be handled swiftly like I had hoped it would, said Naruto with his mind thinking a mile a minute. It is clear Petyr Baelish is guilty of treason on multiple levels, Your Grace. Sadly, if we kill him now, we make ourselves an enemy of the Vale. Lisa Arryn might even join her forces with the North if it benefits her cause to see us destroyed for killing Petyr Baelish, or if she learns of him being imprisoned by what she will believe are false charges against her not-so-secret love, said Varys while Naruto nodded. I did not just become king of the 7 kingdoms only to have this entire city burned to the ground at the hands of multiple enemies. So, we must act accordingly. Pycelle, you are no longer Grand Maester. You lost that right when you conspired against 2 hands of the king and will be immediately replaced with someone far more fitting of the position. Until that time, the position is vacant, and I leave my hand of the king to find someone who can do it properly in your stead, replied Naruto with Pycelle weakly nodding. And what is to become of me during this time, Your Grace? Asked Pycelle fearfully, since death or the wall did not appeal to him in the slightest in terms of choices. For now, you will spend your remaining days in the black cells until I say otherwise for your crimes. Should the Citadel wish to punish you, I will allow it provided what they decide to do is a befitting punishment. Be grateful I don't put you to the sword right now, old man. I am very tempted, replied Naruto with Pycelle nodding. Thank you for this mercy, your grace, whispered Pycelle with Naruto nodding before summoning more men to come into the room and take the former Grand Maester away. The small council seems to be getting smaller, remarked Tyrion with Naruto nodding. Sadly, it's not something I wish to happen shortly after becoming king. But given how things have been prior to my arrival, it cannot be helped in the slightest. Varys, send a raven to the citadel immediately. Let them know what Pycelle has done in violation of their laws and request that a new maester be immediately appointed as Grand Maester of King's Landing. Also, send a raven to both Stannis and Renly about me being the late King Robert's firstborn son. Make sure they understand there is no disputing the facts surrounding my claims and that my father even called me his son upon my birth. List in the message all the names of those who were witnesses to the event, including Jon Arryn. His name alone holds weight to my claim, even if his death lightens it. At the very least, I can hopefully get both men to stop fighting for the Iron Throne, and fight for me instead against the Lannisters. Also, when you send a raven to Robb Stark, ensure he knows that his sister Sansa will not be treated poorly while I rule as king, and inform him that I do not have his younger sister Arya Stark. Speaking of the girl, where is she exactly? Said Naruto, since getting the support of the North and being in their good graces would go a long way in the future. She went missing following Joffrey's move to take the Iron Throne and after Ned Stark was executed. Not to question your judgment, your grace, but should we let Robb Stark know about this too? Asked Varys while Tyrion looked nervous since both girls were the leverage over House Stark if it was believed House Lannister had the two female Starks in their possession. While Tyrion believed letting Robb Stark know about Sansa being safe in the hands of the new, and rightful, king, he had misgiving about revealing Arya being lost to them. Yes. Inform him I will announce Ned Stark's so-called confession was invalid on its face and he was pressured into confessing with a sword poised to come down on his poor daughter's neck. Any man who loves his child, much less his daughter, would have done the same thing in Ned Stark's place. Inform Robb Stark that I will be ordering the City Watch and the Kingsguard not corrupted by my mother to find Arya in the city, despite the fact I suspect the girl may have already escaped King's Landing and is trying to get back home to Winterfell. Let him know I will return Sansa to him once I am certain that safe passage can be made available to her, and the same can be said about Arya if the girl is found. I have been told many times that my father had a great deal of respect for Ned Stark and the bond the two had was unmatched. Loyalty to one another in times of crisis and supporting each other when asked for it without question. I will continue that tradition with myself and Robb Stark in the hopes we can keep such bonds alive for the future and the preservation of the Seven Kingdoms, said Naruto while Varys' smile increased and knew this man would be a great benefit to the realm. I will carry out the order immediately, your grace, replied Varys humbly. Please do it now, Varys. Uncle Tyrion, you and I need to talk, alone, said Naruto with Varys nodding and left the room silently as always. What do you need to talk to me about, your grace? Or am I allowed to call you nephew now? Asked Tyrion while pouring a cup of wine for himself. The rumors about my mother and my uncle Jaime birthing my siblings, before today when it was practically revealed in this room, you knew they were true, didn't you? You knew Cersei and Jaime had an incestuous affair long before anyone else did, am I right? Asked Naruto with Tyrion pausing for a second in his drinking before he finished it and staring at his now empty wine cup. Yes. I knew the rumors were true long before anyone else knew the horrible truth behind their forbidden affair with each other. My brother and sister have always been close in terms of family bonds. Obsessively so from what I have seen when they think no one is looking. With Robert's constant whoring, it was inevitable that Cersei would find herself in the arms of another man to punish him in her own way. Though I doubt that the overall concept for revenge against Robert by fucking another man applied to our brother Jaime being said man to do it. If father found out, he would have Cersei and her 3 children killed, and as for Jaime, I don't know how father would punish him since he was meant to be the heir to Casterly Rock, said Tyrion, knowing his father was among the most ruthless men in all of the Seven Kingdoms and would do just about anything possible to make his enemies suffer for even the smallest slights against his legacy. Even if it was said legacy that caused the slight in the first place. Joffrey aside, we also have to figure out what to do with Myrcella, and Tommen, since we both know neither of them can claim to be of royal blood if this gets out. I don't want my remaining half-siblings to suffer further for the stupidity that is Joffrey's actions. Or the actions of their fucked-up mother, said Naruto, knowing his mother was an idiot and didn't think things through simply because she believed royalty had all the power. That she held all the power when in truth, Cersei held none. Flashback: Red Keep. Cersei's room the previous evening. Naruto entered his mother's room. She was sitting in a chair reading in front of a desk and pretending to look calm. But Naruto knew otherwise. She was a fury of emotions right now. Anger and hatred being chief among them. Did he care? No. Why would he care when the woman in front of him sent her firstborn son to Essos to become one of the Unsullied? The Unsullied. She wanted him to become slave soldier without a dick and thus not a real man. The masters of Astapor thought slave soldiers with dicks could not focus on the tasks given to them because all they would think about were fucking women in their free time. Have you come to kill me? Or are you going to simply stare at me like you have never seen a beautiful woman like your mother before today? Asked Cersei while she looked up from her book at him. Kill you? And become a kinslayer? You must think so lowly of your firstborn son to think I would go so low in removing you from my life. It is surprising though that you would think such things given how low Joffrey has become since being raised by you. Given the rumors of his cruelty, I have expected one of his younger siblings to meet his or her end by now, commented Naruto calmly while he saw Cersei glare at him for that last remark. Joffrey is a good son. My son. My one true firstborn son among my children. Not the monster you were when I brought you screaming into the world, said Cersei with Naruto scoffing at her words. The good son? What good has he done? Tell me. What grand thing has my brother done to make you proud of him? Aside from killing a harmless pregnant cat? Going back on his word to spare Ned Stark upon confessing his so-called crimes against the crown? Or ordering the execution of Ned Stark right on the steps of the Great September of Baelor? You do realize the last one is considered a sin in the eyes of the Seven, right? You do know Joffrey just damned House Lannister for future generations to come, right? Asked Naruto while Cersei glared at him and stood up from her seat. I don't have to justify his actions to you, monster. Your very presence is revolting to me and I won't stand for it, said Cersei angrily while she walked toward him. Really? I could say the same about you. Though between the two of us, who is the more disgusting? The man with mismatched eyes, who was only guilty of having strong family traits, resulting from multiple houses marrying into each other several generations ago. Or, the man's mother, who constantly fucked her twin brother Jaime, and produced 3 children born of their incestuous affair while trying to cover it up by any and all means necessary? Not to mention your more recent sexual affair with your first cousin Lancel Lannister, who is your father's brother's son. I wonder what grandfather would think or do if he learned the horrible truth behind your 3 children. Or the fact you spread your legs like a whore, but only for members of your own family? Questioned Naruto before he caught the hand moving to strike him in the face. You have no right to judge me, my son. I did what I had to do. I did what I have always had to do, and that is protect my family from harm, whispered Cersei venomously while Naruto once more scoffed at her. And what about me, my so-called mother? I am family too. You brought me into this world all those years ago. You screamed and cried out as I did shortly before I was born. Yet you cast me aside simply because my father chose to fuck whores and wenches over you. You blamed me for his whoring because of my deformity, as you called it, when I was younger. You blamed Lyanna Stark too simply because father loved her even after she died and you couldn't get out of a dead woman's shadow long after she was buried in the ground. Remarked Naruto before shoving his mother back. What happened to the handmaiden I entrusted with your demise and suffering? Is she still alive? Or is she dead? Asked Cersei while watching her son carefully. She died when I was 12 years old. From an illness no less. Still, the time I spent with her were among my happier moments. She was more of a mother to me during my first week following my exile than you were for the first 4 years of my birth. I don't even acknowledge you as my mother. Kushina was my mother. As far as I am concerned, you Cersei Lannister are a whore, who gets off on incest-based relationships with her twin brother, and on occasion when Jaime isn't around, her first cousin. Grandfather would be so proud of you in becoming his great legacy he left behind to continue on the Lannister name, answered Naruto with Cersei's hate-filled glare increasing at the end when his voice became laced with sarcasm. So, what will you do now? With me? Joffrey? Myrcella? Tommen? Will you be like Ned Stark or Renly? Plan to place us under arrest? Hold us all hostage until my father stops fighting the northern barbarians while you betray me further by making peace with them all? Demanded Cersei with Naruto nodding. Yes, I am for the most part. Joffrey will have the choice of the black cells or the wall to spend the rest of his life for his crimes. Prince or not, king or not, he did horrible things, and the sin of killing Ned Stark where he did demand my half-brother be punished for it. But don't worry, Myrcella and Tommen will not be harmed under my orders. They are innocent in all of this and don't deserve to be punished for your fuck-ups with Joffrey, said Naruto while Cersei sneered at him. You being the worst of them all. Had I known you would have survived Essos thanks to that bitch of a handmaiden, I would have thrown your drugged body into the sea myself. Exclaimed Cersei angrily at her son. Only to be grabbed by the throat a second later, lifted off the ground, and slammed into the nearest wall with Naruto's iron grip for a hand holding her in place. Do not mistake me for a man who shows mercy to his enemies or shows it lightly in the first place. You are my enemy, Cersei. You are an enemy to House Baratheon. You are an enemy to House Stark. You are an enemy to the Seven Kingdoms as a whole because of your inability to let go of your power with the changing times. You would not let Ned Stark become regent because it would mean you would no longer hold power as queen. You would not allow anyone to deny Joffrey the Iron Throne because you couldn't stand the idea of being without power and manipulating Joffrey to do your every bidding from the shadows, which does provide a great deal of it. But power does not last. It does not in the hands of the kings, queens, the princes, the princesses, the highborn, the lowborn, the sinners, or the septons themselves. Power leaves us and the more we try to grab onto it, the faster it is taken away, and we are soon left with nothing. Just as you are now left with nothing, replied Naruto, as he held Cersei in his iron grip. You won't kill me. You will become a kinslayer. You would lose the support of the people and many would wish for Joffrey to take the throne again, said Cersei while Naruto just gave her a quick nod. I know. Which is why I won't kill you. Unlike Joffrey or yourself, I do not embrace the idea of killing my own blood to further my ambitions, said Naruto before throwing her onto the floor. How noble of you, spat Cersei bitterly before she found one of her hands stepped on by Naruto's boot and cried out in pain. You misunderstand. I won't kill you or Joffrey, but that doesn't mean I won't hurt either of you in other more profound ways. Like making your bodies reflect both your twisted minds and your very putrid-looking souls, said Naruto with his sword now drawn for Cersei to stare at in fear. You would draw your sword against me? Your mother? Your own queen? Demanded Cersei while staring at the sword before she looked right into his eyes. You are not worthy of being called my mother. In the eyes of the seven, Kushina of House Uzumaki was more worthy of being called such a title. As for being my queen, you are queen regent, if only that for now, and thus have no real power here. Your title is hollow. Your power from said title is hollow, just like your bitter heart beating in your chest while you think up some scheme to subvert some measure of control over me, said Naruto with Cersei crying out in pain from his boot putting pressure on her hand. You are a monster. A demon. I will have your head on a pike for this. My father will not allow you to get away with this. Even if you are of his blood through me. A Lannister always pays their debts. Exclaimed Cersei through the pain of her hand being crushed. Your father, my grandfather will do nothing to me, Cersei. Nor will you have him try to do anything to me. Why? Because if you do, I will reveal every sin you have ever done in life all the way up until now. From fucking your brother to having 3 of his children and passing them off as Robert's own. Not to mention fucking Lancel from the scent of your choice of soap I smelled on him that is now on you. In fact, if I had more evidence, I would charge both you and Lancel with conspiracy to kill my father. I could reveal so much about you that no one in the 7 kingdoms would come to your aid if you were thrown in the black cells. Not for all the gold in Casterly Rock. If you challenge me on this, Cersei, you will lose. You will die. Mother or not. Queen or not. Do we understand one another? Whispered Naruto in a deathly while Cersei grit her teeth. Fuck you. Exclaimed Cersei, but cried out again when Naruto pressed his foot down even harder on the woman hand to the point of nearly breaking it. Do we understand one another? Naruto asked again while his cold look intensified to further enforce he was in no mood for her defiance. For now, answered Cersei with a bitterness in her tone. Good. Just remember this, my so-called mother, never start a war you cannot win or you are guaranteed to lose. And before you say anything further, this applies to the Game of Thrones too, said Naruto before walking out of the room and leaving his mother to stew in her anger the rest of the night. End flashback. Myrcella and Tommen are innocent as one can hope to be with children. Not a single evil act between them, thank the gods. It seems they flipped a coin for both and it came out good for their minds not being plagued by madness. I was actually thinking up a plan to protect Myrcella from this war before you first arrived and made your presence known in the throne room, said Tyrion with Naruto looking a bit intrigued. What do you propose? Asked Naruto with Tyrion grinning. I plan to put Myrcella in an arranged marriage with Prince Doran Martell's son and heir Trystane Martell in Dorne. I have been speaking to Prince Doran through messages sent by ravens and seeking to end the bad blood between our houses. What better way to protect Myrcella and heal the wounds of the past at the same time? Replied Tyrion with Naruto nodding since it was a sound plan. The older brother of the Red Viper. I actually met Prince Oberyn in Essos in the fighting pits a few years ago. Good fighter. Very passionate on multiple levels. Does either Prince Doran or Oberyn believes the rumors about Myrcella's own questionable parentage? Do they even know about it or care? Asked Naruto curiously since he suspected the younger prince was more open-minded given his sexuality was to both genders. Dorne is a very open kingdom when it comes to having lovers and birthing bastards of all shapes and sizes. Also, Prince Doran has assured me Myrcella would not be harmed in any way despite her being a Lannister. In his last message he said, and I quote, "We do not hurt little girls in Dorne." After I expressed my worry for her overall safety. Given the bad blood between our houses, it was understandable, said Tyrion with Naruto nodding. Yes. Prince Oberyn was angry at me when he found out who my father and mother really are when I revealed it to him during our last time slugging it out in the fighting pits. My father was wrong to let the Mountain get away with what he did to Elia Martell and her children on Tywin Lannister's orders. Something I plan to correct in the near future to bring Dorne further into the fold of doing future business with King's Landing once again, said Naruto while Tyrion nodded since killing children was a very big sin no matter if you were royal blood or not. What about Tommen? He's a good lad. Naive to the ways of the world. But honest all the same, questioned Tyrion while Naruto thought things over in his mind. We can't have both go to Dorne. For now, Tommen will just have to stay here in King's Landing with me until a suitable solution reveals itself to me. Not to mention there is the issue with Joffrey and how to punish him for his many crimes. The wall comes to mind, remarked Naruto with his eyes narrowing while thinking about how to deal with the little shit without resorting to kinslaying. And my father. Your grandfather. He won't take this lying down, nephew. This will be considered a major affront to him on multiple levels. Even if you are his grandson, said Tyrion with Naruto smirking. Personally, I don't care what the old lion thinks at the moment. I am still his grandson above all things and now the king of the 7 kingdoms. If Tywin Lannister feels I am inadequate as a king, he can come here alone without his army, and see what I changed for the better here in this city when this stupid war is over. Provided no one kills him at the end, said Naruto calmly while his uncle nodded. Your Grace. Your Grace. Let me through. I bring horrible news. Exclaimed a member of the Kingsguard running into the room panting heavily. What terrible news? Asked Naruto with the man breathing and catching his breath. It's your mother and Queen Regent, Your Grace. She has fled King's Landing with Prince Joffrey with the aid of her cousin Lancel Lannister and the other armed men from House Lannister. They attacked the Hound and wounded him after he killed a large number of them during the escape and have fled west to Casterly Rock on horseback, said the Kingsguard while Naruto and Tyrion frowned. What about Myrcella and Tommen? Asked Tyrion, knowing Cersei would seek to get them too. They were unable to get Princess Myrcella or Prince Tommen from their room's lord hand. It would seem the Queen Regent only had enough time to grab one of her 3 children and chose Joffrey, answered the Kingsguard while Naruto sighed at how things went sideways on him. And so it begins. Time to see if I can be a man remotely worthy of being called a king in this time of great crisis, said Naruto to himself while hoping he could do everything possible to protect the people of King's Landing. Because if he didn't, everyone in the city, if not the 7 kingdoms, was seriously and totally fucked. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.